ladies and gentlemen, I haven't done one of these. I did these last week. How do I even do these anymore? Anyways, welcome to the TFT Patch 10.22 note rundown. For people that didn't know, I didn't do the last week because I don't do patch note rundowns on weeks I don't play a lot of TFT. Because I feel like the only reason I do rundowns is because I like to give my thoughts on the patch. If I don't play the game, then I don't really have thoughts on the patch or the game. These last 2 weeks I've played a lot of TFT though, so I feel pretty happy and have pretty good thoughts on the overall state of the game. So without further ado, let's continue. Welcome to those fallen from the divine. Okay, whoever wrote that, man. Okay, this week's patch is relatively small as most of the major outliers from patch 10.21 were tuned in from the B-side patch. In addition, standard balance changes. We have a bit of chosen theme this week. This is the first time we're changing the chosen bonus stats for certain champions to better fit in with the rest of their abilities. Cool. We're making additional changes, specifically the chosen cultists and keepers, to make them a bit more appealing. Lastly, we're updating the shop tooltip to include roll chances for chosen units. Great. Currently, and this is something that I saw Saint Vicious share his thoughts on recently. It feels like a patch by patch that a little bit of the versatility of the game is getting a little messed up. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels like there's one really OP thing and it gets nerfed really hard and you don't really see much of the comp again. Like it kind of gets nerfed out of existence almost, whether it's like through divine or through like cultists or through something. It feels like there are compositions that just get dramatically weaker on certain patches, which makes it hard to play more versatilely, because the strong units are just like some of the weaker units are not really as playable. And I really felt that recently because it felt like a good example of this is old cultists used to be really strong early, but then like they would fall off, so you'd always rotate out of them. But nowadays, it feels like sometimes early cultists are just like too weak, which I'm sure they're changing in this patch. And like Divine feels like somewhat tough to play, especially after the big Divine hotfix. Because Shiv made a lot of Divine really unbearable to play against, but maybe the actual trade itself wasn't as bad. I think one of the biggest things is that as Riot has gotten better at balancing the items to be more useful. Unfortunately, a big item balance patch came in at the same time as a big unit or big trait balance patch, because Divine was complete garbage for most of the set. There's no reason to play more than 2 Divine because defensively you would get the bonus on 2 and you would never want to play 4 or more. And after they changed that and changed a lot of the items at the same time, like I think some of the patches have been pretty bad to play for me personally. Anyways, let's go on before I talk to myself to death. I never go over this. I just like to read over individually as they go on. Players now take a minimum of 1 damage on losses. This doesn't matter at all unless you're losing to ZZ Rot or you're losing to Galio. Or no, unless you're losing to Galio, because Galio you can take 0 damage in the first stage. So it's very marginal, doesn't really matter. Chosen roll chances are now displayed in the shop tooltip. Great. Any kind of information you can get inside the game that you don't have to go to outside sources are a lot better, like way better. So this is always good stuff to see. There are a couple of traits that have been unintentional anti-synergy with the chosen mechanic as they lose value with less units on the board. We're changing the rules of these chosen to count as 2 units for the sake of their traits. Oh, okay. Cultist chosen now counts as 2 cultists and will grant Galio double the amount of star levels. E.g., a 2-star elite will grant Galio 4-star levels instead of 2. Wow, that's so nice. That means early cultists are worth a lot now. Keeper chosen now worth as 2 keepers and grant double the amount of shields. That's just broken. I think keeper chosen now early game, like keeper Elise, is incredibly strong. Like keeper in general is a very strong early mid game synergy, and you would just put in another Elise 1 just to give that kind of mini locket to your comp. But so it looks like early Elise is going to be really powerful if you get a chosen in any regard. 4 Dazzler goes up to 80% damage reduction. 80% is an absolute shitload. My worry and it goes from 15 seconds to 8 seconds, so Dazzler is better at 2 and better at 4 than current live. My current problem with the current set is that there seems to be a lot of CC and a lot of traits that are very powerful that also get countered by QSS. So it feels like a lot of times like QSS is overly mandatory sometimes, especially in a lot of carry situations where like Dazzler doesn't affect QSS targets and Adept doesn't affect QSS targets, and then like you can't get hit with Sedge or Aatrox, So I think one of the big balance issues is the problem is QSS and how it like kind of uh interacts with a lot of the current traits in the set. I think that's going to be a big problem for them from a balance perspective, because I don't know how, like, either you make the traits powerful and you kind of just make QSS somewhat mandatory for the rest of the set, which it kind of feels like they're going to do that, or you kind of tone down QSS and kind of adjust the traits accordingly, which seems like maybe a harder way to tackle the things. I'm not sure which way they're going to go, but at least they're making 4 Dazzler more worth it here. 4 Ninja goes down 10 spell damage. That's probably irrelevant, honestly. Sharpshooter damage reduction goes from... You decrease sharpshooter damage at 2 splash and increase it... Wait. Increase it at 6. I think that's reasonable, but I don't really think that matters for sharpshooters. Most of the times, I feel like there weren't really many people playing 2 sharpshooters, and I actually liked a lot of the 2 sharpshooter compositions. Stuff like with it's 2. 2 is better, and 6 is worse. Okay, wait, I don't think that matters at all. Then it's a slightly better to splash, but no. I think that's strange. I hope there's more sharpshooter nerfs down the patch notes. I feel like sharpshooters are kind of crazy strong right now, and I feel like most of it comes from the power of 4 sharpshooters. So it's strange to see there to be adjustments on 2 to 4. But maybe maybe it's also kind of interesting because I feel that if sharpshooters are ever meta, a lot of like assassin-based compositions are very, very strong against them, or mage-based ahri compositions are really, really strong against them. So maybe that sharpshooters aren't like super unbalanced. They just somewhat feel bad to play against if the enemy Jinx starts going off too much. Similar to what I said before, where there's a lot of CC in the set, I feel like Jinx is one of those units that like feels bad to lose to because she can have so much CC kind of applied to your entire team. So maybe sharpshooters themselves aren't a problem, and I think maybe they're pushing more toward the fact that you just kind of have to have some sort of CC reduction or adjustment to work around that. Okay, if your chosen health bonus goes down to max mana reduction, that's nice, actually. Max mana reduction plus being enlightened means that she's able to parry a lot more in fights, so she'll be a much better unit for 1-star. Lysandra chosen champion targeting goes from highest attack target to highest AD. I think that's better. I don't think it super matters because you can kind of position Lysandra to like hit the way you want, but it makes sense because she's a Dazzler to do it that way. I agree with that. Silver Vein bolts true damage now gets increased to 90, 140. I actually really like this. I tried a lot of Vayne 3, like 4 Dusk, 4 Sharpshooter, Vayne 3 carry, fully decked out Vayne, and she feels like definitely one of the weaker units to play. I do think she could use a little bit more buffs. I don't think 1-star units should be like omega fucking OP or strong, but she felt definitely a little bit on the weaker side. Vi health goes to max mana reduction. The damage goes from 600 to 800, and the armor strength goes up 2 seconds. I think they're doing some really interesting stuff with warlords in terms of tier. The warlords have like between Jarvan and Vi have some insane base damage scaling at 3 stars. I don't really know why, but Jarvan's 750 can hit AoE, Vi's 800 can hit AoE. It's kind of interesting. It kind of makes you want to get 3-star both of them more. Max mana reduction is probably preferable for every single chosen in the game because max mana just allows you to ulti a lot more. The extra 200 or 300 health matters a lot less than the potential for multiple ultis. So this is a huge buff to a champion. I think is already pretty good. I think Vi is actually not bad. Kali mana lock as after spellcast is from 1 to 1.25 seconds. This is just so when she plays blue buff, she doesn't get ulti, auto ulti. You have to wait 0.25 seconds longer. So it seems like she'll be a little bit less oppressive with blue buff. Fine, she'll probably still be very, very good. Evelyn Last Caress goes up to 1400 for tier 3. Sure. I think that's not too big of a deal. Nunu Consume goes up to 1800. I actually think Nunu is crazy strong. I'm seeing it a lot more currently when people are playing a lot of Sejuani's and Vanguard openers. If you're playing Elderwood and you have like a 4 brawler or 6 brawler Nunu and Nunu 3 and you put some items on him, Nunu starts becoming really annoying. They increase his consume damage by 500, and he converts consume damage to true damage if he has more health than them. So Nunu actually might be really, really strong. I love pushing Nunu 3. I think this is like a crazy buff for you that's already pretty good. Ahri Spirit Bomb damage goes down by 25, 75, and 0. So Ahri 2 right now is probably one of the most oppressive units in the game. I think a lot of it comes down to the Ahri ulti working through GA, which I'm okay keeping that in the game. But between Ahri's AoE being so large and her kind of scaling with Jewel Gauntlet and Jewel Gauntlet or Jewel Gauntlet IE, it makes it so that she just does like so much damage. You can't really counter it. I've seen people run 6 Mystic into Ahri and still die to her Spirit Bombs, and I think that that's like crazy. Like I think that that's almost obscene that Ahri can do that to people. So whether it's like an Ahri base damage kind of thing or like a Jewel Gauntlet kind of thing being too good, crit for spells being too powerful, I think they're tackling one issue, which is the Ahri Spirit Bomb, which I think is fair. Especially for level 2, that's going to be a lot of damage off the, I guess, crit. So hopefully like teching and 4 Mystic will make a lot more sense against Ahri. Ashe fixed the bugs where 4 or 5 flurry shots could not critically strike or be dodged. What? You couldn't crit with 4 or 5 shots on Ashe? And you had random RFC on it. Wait, that's so random. I've had people run IE Ashe and it just didn't crit. Okay, well Ashe will be a lot better with IE, I guess. And I think this means that if you just have Last Whisper and not more crit, you're able to apply Last Whisper a lot better, even without 100% crit chance, like even without the IE. That's really nice, actually. Spell targeting to be a little less random. What does this mean? So usually when they update star spell targeting, they say something like this, where it goes from this like random to like attack highest to highest attack damage, but it just says little less random. So it would, I don't know what this means. Does this say somewhere? It targets clumps. Okay, you know, that's great. It's just like not very clear here. One of the most frustrating things about Morgana is the AoE on her ability is very large, but because it was truly random targeting, Morgana just like whiffed on her stuff all the time. But I do think it's strange it didn't actually tell you how it became less random. I think that they should do that in future patch notes. Ezreal's starting mana goes up by 15. I think Ezreal is really a little bit weak right now. I think definitely buffing him is no big deal. I think buffing 5 stars is actually pretty nice. One of the biggest things right now is if you go to level 5, a lot of 5 stars are weaker than 4 costs in terms of carries outside of Yone. Yone, extremely strong, fucking great unit. Set, you kind of need a lot for it. Kayn is bugged right now, so he doesn't actually do damage correctly. And I hope they kind of fix it down here. And so right now, if you get to tier 5 units, they're not like very powerful. And the strength of poor tier 5 units means that everyone tries to go all in for like 2-star 4 cost units instead, which I don't think should be the case. Oh, Lee Sin actually can't stun lock the target anymore. So he can't immediately push people out given no blue buff with just attack speed. That's actually a huge nerf to Lee Sin, because there's a lot of units that will reposition when they get hit, stuff like Riven, and so it's impossible for Lee Sin to like permanently kick them out. It sure was frustrating, but it also makes 5 stars a really nice 5-star weaker as well. And they nerf Lilia damage Sleep Break, which is another 5-star. That's pretty brutal. Oh, okay, so they buffed chosen set instead of health is now spell damage, and they make it so he does primary target takes 5% and 15% more max health. Wait, no, that's just worse. Generally speaking, you want the sleep to last as long as possible. Breaking the threshold earlier just seems weaker in general, because a lot of times you tech in Lilia just for the CC. You guys are confusing me. What the heck? Anyways, they buff Set, which is great. I think if they do this, even if Lee Sin and Lily get a little bit nerfed, as long as they refix Kayn AI, which is currently not ulting as many times as he should in certain situations, a lot of the 5 stars will feel a lot more appealing. Nunu will, but no longer eat Set if he still needs to do sit-ups. That's funny. I didn't know that will hard counter Nunu, but that's good to know. Luden's now bonus damage now goes to only crowd control targets instead of shielded. That is surprising. Still really good on Nami. It's still like a pretty good item in general. I think Luden's value tends to be very strong early game and then fall off toward late game. And usually what happens is when the meta gets more solidified, you have units that can carry Luden's very well throughout the game. Stuff like early Lissandra, early Nami Chosen into early Kindred, mid-game Kindred, mid-game Akali, into late-game Kayn. It's usually how you see Luden's work in past sets. The current set really only has Kayn as like a low mana end person. They have like Lee Sin as well. Right now it's like you shifted to Kayn or Riven, I think at the moment, which is not bad. I think that Luden's is generally tends to see more play when the meta starts to stabilize and the comps start to get more and more fleshed out as the set kind of progresses. Because it is a very, very powerful item that tends to fall off, but it gives you enough of a lead in the early game to be still worth slamming a lot of times. Rabadon's goes up by 5. I do think Rabadon's is kind of weak. I think it's kind of strange that instead of, it should be the premier AP item, but everyone's slamming Jewel Gauntlet instead for anything else. And even in situations where there are lobbies where 3 people are building Bramble, you're still seeing players slam Jewel Gauntlet over Death Cap. And I think generally speaking, that probably isn't a good sign for the item strength. So increasing the spell power a little bit, this even seems too small maybe, seems like a good idea for me. Hurricane buff goes to 100% attack damage. It's kind of scary. Probably right now it's currently used on Zed, Spirit Zed a lot, or just Zed in general, because he gets so much massive AD from his kind of ulti, his drain ulti. But you can potentially also see this being used a lot for stuff like Jhin. Sharpshooters could be very, very strong. You'll see it being used at Callista, but mainly just to spread her passive auto attack to new targets. I don't think it's actually to do raw AD damage. But definitely a buff like this will make it more appealing to sharpshooters, especially. Shiv damage goes down 4. Bonus damage goes up a lot. So it's even better against shielded targets, but a little bit less damage. It's probably... I think Shiv is still okay. It feels like it got nerfed a lot, so people stopped using it. But there's probably situations where Shiv isn't that bad. Oh, without 5 damage. Holy shit. I think a lot of people don't end up using it because this is a weird set where there's not that many attack speed modifier things early. When you look at past set with Shiv, you saw Shiv being used in Xayah comps. And then you would trade the Xayah off later for something else that could use Shiv, right? Similar to how Luden's was used in past sets as well. In this set, it's difficult because early game, it's like you put it on sharpshooters, but it doesn't really matter. Like Vayne doesn't really do much with it. And it's tough to kind of switch the item off to something that can use it better. There's no Ranger attack speed trait buff that does really well. So I think that it's a little bit more difficult to use this set regardless about the kind of bonus damage it does. I think buffing it is probably necessary because it's just a little harder to use. The Zeke's Herald goes down. Zeke's alongside Chalice getting slammed nonstop. It's probably still very good. You lose 15% attack speed across 3 units, but still probably very worth slamming, honestly. The ZZ portal taunt duration decreased. I love that they added the taunt into the game. I think ZZ Rod now has a very clear identity. It forces taunts, really good against assassins, really good at forcing like a type of positioning to make a unit ulti immediately off of at the very beginning of the fight. So I really love what they did with ZZ Rod. I absolutely like great like kind of item that's powerful but has its own kind of niche effect. Lowering the taunt duration is probably necessary. I think it's a little too strong because it taunts on the unit death as well. So that's a little bit annoying, but I do love that they added the taunt to the item. Fix the bug where contract 10 more AD than intended. Okay, where you can access the initial taunt by equipping ZZ Rot mid-combat. Oh, I didn't even know this was a thing, but I mean, glad they removed that. The Divine's damage reduction will no longer reduce true damage. Okay. Exile will no longer fail to create the shield when placed next to a Galio summon. I didn't even know this was the case, but that sucks. That's good buff. Taunt will now run through the attack flow when attacking with his spell. This will trigger Rage Blade, Shiv, etc. Oh, that's cool. Makes items a little bit better. And taunts will no longer persist if the taunter becomes untargetable. So like shade debuff, huh? I wonder if this affects assassin jumpers. Currently, right now, the way ZZ Rot works is if you put ZZ Rot in front of the unit that's jumping over it, it'll force the assassin to shade or the assassin to turn around. I wonder if that's because they're kind of untargetable midair that they also don't get taunted. I hope that's not the case. I think it's just like if it gets untargetable for a split second and it just breaks the taunt, which I think is completely okay. Like that's reasonable for units. I think it's mainly for Zephyr. Okay, that's cool. This kind of got a little bit. This patch run now is a little bit loose. I think currently, when I think of like a kind of a healthy meta for TFT, I find that it's a meta where it's like all the it's versatile. The traits are being used, or a lot of traits are being used in a lot of different comps. And you can have multiple carried units both in 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star categories. And of course, there's reroll comps that are there where you can shove for like 1 or 2-star reroll comps that tend to get kind of beat late game by more developed 5-star compositions, and like that sounds pretty straightforward, very hard to achieve, right? Currently, it felt like Ahri kind of oppressed a lot of the comps. Because of how she functions, she would just one-shot the whole board. So you couldn't play a lot of different compositions because it was impossible with GA plus like 2 crit items for you to be able to kill Ahri before she killed your team. With more Ahri nerfs, I'm hoping that more comps become more viable. I don't necessarily know if it's enough. I feel that Ahri would still probably be okay with double Jewel Gauntlet, but maybe, and hopefully it'll be the case where there's be some things that end up coming out of it. I do think though in metas where there's very I like TFT because in metas where there's very demand dominant, I guess, compositions, stuff like I'll give an example. So like Ahri Vanguard, you start seeing the meta automatically kind of warp around it. Giant Slayer becomes a lot less valuable. Everyone's slamming Last Whisper to deal with Vanguard frontline. And so like the game itself is always self-correcting because also when you go for the meta comps, there will be some people who don't hit, and the people who don't hit just go 8th place. So in that situation, I find that TFT always tends to self-correct in a way, which means that like kind of that there's items and units that are able to kind of make the game self-correct. So I think on that level, I think they're doing a pretty good job. But definitely, I think the last 2 patches, the meta has gotten a little bit more oppressive and less versatile for a lot of different traits, and I hope that it kind of shifts away from that.